Oh, hey, guys. So, I, uh, I am back with another WACOOH read. Hopefully that's not going to be in focus. This should be in focus. I'm praying this is in focus. So, where did we get to? Our hero, Quentin Alzubi, the immortal man, he's just gotten back from his blood test, where they were testing his blood to see where his immortality has come from. And they can't figure it out. But unusually enough, they have ordered a second blood test. And he's very suspicious of this. Why have they given him another blood test? After which he cycles on home back to his apartment in the Hotel du Soleil, and I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably saying that wrong. He walks in and discovers a suspicious letter on his on slipped under his door or through his postbox, and it's covered in a black goop. Which he blames on the post lady. And just before we cut the last reading, he was about to read that letter. So here we go. We're still on chapter 1. We're only 9 pages in. I have now changed the format. So widescreen, baby. I'm also doing this without monitors. So I am praying that this sounds okay. And no, I'm not up here, you know. If I'm right into the mic, it should sound a bit nicer. So yeah, thank you ever so much for watching. I'm gonna crack on. So here we go. This is WACOOH. We're still chapter 1. Yeah, I'll just do some reading. I love me some reading, I do. Okay, here we go. Wow, I'm gonna do this. All right. He picked up the letter, blazoned by the stamp of Lady Jupiter's Resource Council and marred by some icky black glue. That shining post lady gunking up my letters again, he thought to himself. He finally sliced the letter open with his fingernail. It read, Gospodin Quentin Alzubi, the Resource Council requests your expert opinion on a sub-solemn trade agreement. Arrive promptly at the Sun Church for 11:30 today. Humbly, Lady Jupiter, Resource Council of New Havila. He read it as quickly as he could. She is after me, he thought to himself. A trade with Sub-Solemn? There weren't any big trades lined up with Sub-Solemn. They took years to negotiate. Maybe this was why that Mascavaka was having trouble. Lady Jupiter's bungled some trade talks. Sub-Solemn isn't happy, and now she needs me to rescue her. But why in all that's bright has she taken another vial of my blood? Who is getting desperate? He tore up the letter and chucked to shreds on the coffee table. Sophia, he called as he stripped off his heavy coat, hung it on the wall peg. From the coat's pockets, he fished out his pipe and lighter, and then made for the living room. Sorry, just if you hear hissing, that's my 2 cats. They're fighting each other, so they may or may not appear. Where was I? Oh, boys! Cut that. Blah, blah, blah. He tore up the letter and chucked the shreds on the coffee table. Sophia, he called as he stripped off his heavy coat, hung it on the wall peg. From the coat's pockets, he fished out his pipe and lighter, and then made for the living room. In the living room, Sophia stood as a silhouette against the big windows which overlooked the New Haviland townscape. On top of the corridor's buildings were teams of people draping summer solstice decorations over the limestone balustrades. Lanterns, knotted and dyed red hemp moss rope, and, Quentin had to squint, what looked like quilts of patchwork with holiday messages stitched into them. Brightness, Quentin said to himself, sticking his pipe into his mouth. It can't be the solstice yet. But he remembered what the man had said in the surgery. The solstice was only weeks away. And I'm getting worn, tired. My bones might as well be chalk. He needed his Zed. Every year it got harder. Sophia had her arms crossed and didn't budge an inch at his presence. I miss her, he mumbled around the pipe. I miss her, I do. But it's been so long and I'm so beaten. He tried to light the pipe, but realised he'd no tobacco in it. He unscrewed the lid from the jar on the living room table and took a pinch from that. And now Lady Jupiter's after me, Sophia. There's no other way to put it. The tobacco crackled in the pipe bowl as he lit it. Taking an extra vial of my blood? He snapped his lighter shut, the metallic clink familiar and grounding. Sophia whispered, "You're so close," but didn't take a look behind her. Sophia whispered, "You're so close," but she didn't take a look behind her. "You'll be off this rock and in the stars soon, Quentin. Forget this place." Exhaling twin jets of smoke from his nostrils, he headed over to the stone table outside the flower room. He smoked the last dregs and then set the pipe down on the table, the stone yellowed over the years by tobacco leaching from the pipe. His hand lingered before the doorknob to the flower room, where he waited a few moments to see if Sophia had anything more to say. She didn't, so he went in. The room's heat brought the blood to his face and set his fingers tingling. He sat himself down on the stool and swiveled the sun lamp to one side. The flower's 10 petals glowed brightly in white. A bead of lefloric Z clung to the tip of the stigma. Quentin reached up to the shelf and found a washed pipette. In careful and precise movements, so as not to touch or disturb the petals, he sucked up today's Z with the pipette, marvelling as it glowed brightly. What in sunlight is Lady Jupiter up to? 2 samples! Uneasiness crept upon him. What would she do with an extra vial? Try to drink it? It wouldn't be the first time someone's tried to drink my blood. He shivered. She'd be slicing bits off me in no time. He unlocked the safe beneath the worktop and grabbed the bottle of lefloric Z from inside. Almost full. The viscous liquid glowed and shimmered. I just panicked that I wasn't recording. Sorry. The viscous liquid glowed and shimmered inside its bottle, chucking out its soft green light. Without looking, he pulled his logbook from its cranny and laid it on the worktop beside the flower. He opened the logbook and double-checked yesterday's reading against the bottle's current reading. Happy that the 2 levels matched, he unstoppered the lefloric Z bottle and squeezed out today's extraction into it. The open bottle perfumed the stuffy air with fruits of the old world. The smell reminded him terribly of Sophia, of those days right before she left. But I never left. He squinted at the scale on the side of the bottle and noted down the new Z level, then locked it back up. And that was when he saw it. A throaty yelp slipped out from him, followed by a momentary blackness. He trembled. It couldn't be. But he reached out and delicately pinched the tip of the petal to take a look at its underside. Hard to do with his shaking hand. But there, as clear as the dust in the sky, was a yellow blotch. A yellow blotch. For a few moments all he could do was sit there, staring at the blotch, praying that it might disappear. He pushed back from the worktop, gathered himself as best he could, and took in everything around him. The hydroponics arrangement and loop, the bulb shape and wattage, the humidity, the temperature of both air and the nutrient solution, the growth medium. He gathered this all up and speculated. It has to be heat stress. The big bulbs in the nursery were a lot better than what he was using here. Taking on Billick as an assistant all those years ago had forced him to move the flower to his rooms. I should have known sooner or later this would have happened. Oh, bloody hell, that was a terrible line. I should have known sooner or later that this would have happened. Much better. Heat stress and poor air circulation. It's all taken its toll. He stared at the yellow blotch as his beautiful flower. I need to move you, he said aloud. Brightness me. You can tell I'm a bit rusty. Alright, scene break. Next scene. As he entered the Alzubi plant nursery, the means and methods of how he was going to move the flower were on his mind. Will the transport case be light enough to take on foot? Or will I have to get the tram? Are my designs even ready? How long can it be off water and nutrient solution? Isn't the design going to be too bulky to be carried discreetly? Do I even need to move it? How can I be... The perfume of 150 densely packed strawberries put an end to all this thought. It was as if summer solstice decorators had broken in and had a go at dressing the growing platform up for its day in the sun church. Vivid reds streaked across the dark greens in a haphazard style. The fruit and leaves perfect substitutes for paint and dye. A while back, when the bright red flowers had burst out from their buds, Quentin suspected that was all they would be getting, some wonderfully pretty strawberry flowers, the rarer red type too. But then the fruits had come, and they didn't stop coming. Now, those delicious fruits dangled from their plants, taunting his hungry stomach. Why didn't I eat at home? And then he remembered the blotch on his flower, and went back to staring at the strawberries, albeit miserably now. He couldn't believe Billick had managed to grow them, let alone so many. When John Ganymede had told him that he'd found an old world seed vault, Quentin and Billick both thought that he either didn't know what a seed vault was, or, if he did, all the seeds inside would be dust. But Ganymede had been right. For the first time in over 150 years, strawberries were back on planet Earth, and Quentin was totally forbidden to eat any of them. Ganymede wanted them for Lady Jupiter, and had paid Billick and Quentin handsomely for their labour and the exclusive rights. They were Ganymede's seeds, after all. Quentin sniffed the air. Something went wrong. I apologise. It's because this camera is pants. It doesn't like these long recordings. I got to the sniff. Yeah, alright. Okay. Quentin sniffed the air. The sweet scent drew out an ancient memory. Him and his mother huddling in a bunker, eating dried strawberries as the bombs fell. He did his best to stuff the memory deep back inside his mind. He'd been thinking of her enough today. The strawberry... Oh, yeah, so how am I going to do Billick's voice? It's a bit like this, I think. I think he sounds a bit like that. The strawberries... Strawberries look about ready, Captain. I don't know, it's tough. He has a gravelly voice. It's really rough and ready. The strawberries look about ready, Captain. Billick said, overripe if you ask me. Quentin heard the botanist but couldn't see him. Where are you? Marching past the strawberries, he crossed through the ribbon threshold to the exotics room, where he thought Billick's voice had come from. On the exotics platform were 2 juvenile cacao trees, no fruits, 5 coffee robusta plants, all in good health, plenty of cherries, and a single tobacco plant, flowering. A slap, slap, slap sounded from the other side of the exotics table. You're barefooted again, Quentin said sharply. Billick rounded the corner of the exotics table and smiled up at Quentin, baring fangs. You out, he said, trying to soften that gravelly voice of his. And I had the radio on. I was dancing as I labelled the strawberry containers. He danced a little jig. Dance with shoes on then. No soul, Captain. No soul that way. Quentin didn't have the patience today. Pressing his fingertips to his forehead, he said, why are the strawberries not in the containers? I want to get the plants into a grow house. We're behind as it is. Billick shrugged, squashing his round chin into his round body and lifting his spindly arms up. You don't know? A little flustered, Billick padded over, and Quentin sat on a stool. Ganymede hasn't telephoned to say he's collecting them, Billick explained. He said he would. I don't want to harvest them as they go bad off the plant, and we can't freeze them. Why not? Because Ganymede wants them fresh, and where are we going to keep them? Quentin scratched at his beard. Brightness, these two are worse than roaches. Lady Jupiter wants my blood, and Ganymede wants my livelihood. He rose. I don't give a hoot what Ganymede wants. We need to clear the growing platform. Pick and pack all the strawberries into the containers. Take them out the back and cover them. They should freeze outside. He don't want them frozen, Quinn, Billick said. Oh, I'll never understand Ganymede. Strawberries, he jutted a thumb behind him, have not been seen in over 150 years, and he doesn't want to pick them up. What's he got wrong? Billick searched about the room and then padded over to his wheelie cart. He climbed in and wheeled back over to the exotics growing platform. High enough now, he inspected the young Coffea robusta plants. He looked like a schoolboy at the Museum of the Old World. He's married, hey, Captain? That's what he's got wrong with him. You think Lady Jupiter's delaying him? When will she leave me alone? Billick shrugged. After a lapse of silence, he finally said, how was the nurse? They say your blood, I bet. The immortal man's blood makes for fine booty. They aren't selling my blood, he hoped. It was fine, he said, heading back to the strawberry room. But she took 2 vials. He stopped short of the threshold to the strawberry room and looked down. A tiny tray of about 5 portobello mushrooms on a worktop. The tray worked on its own hydroponics loop. Its growth medium had been stained white too. What's this? Quinton said. Billick jumped from his wheelie cart and padded over, only to hop up onto a stool to bring himself level with the worktop and tray, and Quinton's jutting finger. It's not what I told you, Quinton said. No experiments. I have it under control. Yeah, but I wanted to wait until after we'd shipped the strawberries, Billick said, his tone still trying for softness but failed. He tugged at a point, did it? A whole rack in Grow House 4 went black last night. You're sure it's black rot? Quinton said, going for his pipe. Then, suddenly conscious he couldn't smoke in the nursery, started clawing at his beard. Aye, Captain, no doubt me heart. Quinton said, no one saw it, did they? No one knows a thing, but for Sid and Dobbermere. Good. It's spreading then. Aye, and fast, Captain. Billick tapped the ceramic tray which held the mushrooms. I had the potters knock me up a bright white tray and give me some of that white perlite. I could spot the rot as soon as it set in. These shrooms are being overfed. Want to see if that's it? Pack it up. I don't want any experiments in the nursery. If you drag the rot in here, what the hell will happen to our business? Billick hopped down from the stool, waved a hand, saying, Yeah, I'll do it. But I know a hempen halter when I see one. A what? A noose, he said, this time making no effort to soften his voice. It came out in the usual deep, gravelly tone. The rot's a noose around our necks, Captain. Yes, I get it, very clever. The clock at the top of the exotics room said 11:46. He was late for the Resource Council meeting, from one disaster to another. I need to go, he said. No more experiments. Aye, Billick said, and if you see Johnny Boy, tell him to give me a dingle on the telephone, or I'll give away the surprise to Lady J. Quinton rolled his eyes, picked up one of the portobellos from Billick's experiment and ate it. As he chewed, the unslippable thought returned to him. Why has she taken 2 vials of my blood? Alright. Woo! It's all heating up. A lot of strawberry action, a lot of blood, black rot. These first chapters are very well, you get it if you're following along. So next scene, moving on. Snow creaked under Quinton's boots. Though he was late for the Resource Council meeting, he took his time walking along the corridor towards Lady Jupiter and her sun church. He hoped to find John Ganymede too, and tried to convince the man to take his strawberries. There's something I never thought I'd have to do. There's something I thought I'd never have to do. Much better, Harrison. Good line read. A tram rattled past. From its glassless windows projected the barrels of roach hunter shotguns. The roach hunters would be heading up the mountain, their grim, weather-worn faces still as the mountain rocks. Part of Quinton wished to be a roach hunter. In another life he'd been very good with firearms. But, he thought, no matter how many roaches those hunters kill, they will never come back down the mountain with coffee or tobacco. And they don't keep this town alive. I do. He tucked his chin into his collar and pressed on, a smile on his face. As he drew nearer to the sun church, he was bothered more and more by Lady Jupiter's sun priests. They wore bright red painted faces, the same colour as the strawberries, and were chanting at anyone who came within earshot. A group of 3, hooded by their black and tattered robes of real old-world cotton, but so ancient that they were threadbare and half falling off, were storming towards him. The 2 without hooves had feet blue from cold, wearing nothing but one-toe sandals. The 3 locked hands and claws and began chanting, "Ooh, zzzt." Quentin said, "Get off," and tried to walk around them. The church loomed large and close, its rusticated bottom nearly within his reach. "Hey," one of the priests said, "it's the immortal man. Got any coffee?" Another said. "It's been months." What about a little lick of waters?" the third said. "I've had a burn in my throat since the last solstice." Quentin had to stop. He looked at the one who mentioned waters dead in her single cycloptic eye and said, "Lady Jupiter will string you up from the church tower for asking that." "You're in a foul stink," the third priest said. "What's the immortal man got to be so miserable about? Don't you know you've made it? You've cheated death, Gospodin." All 3 leant backwards and faced the sky. The third priest continued. "Soon," she said, "the sun shall part the stratospheric dust, and grasses and plants shall grow on the lands." As all their eyes were skyward, they didn't see him slink off. He reached the sun church, the heavy wooden door twice his height, and grabbed the iron knocker. Just as he was about to strike the door, it swung open, and he had to jump back to avoid a blow to the face. "Johnny, would you wait a moment? Brightness, Johnny!" came Lady Jupiter's bellowy calls from inside the church. The great and powerful New Haviland leader, John Johnny Ganymede, strolled out from the doorway, ducking slightly so as not to hit his head. "John," Quentin said, a little surprised to see him. "Zuby," the giant nodded, his eyes containing a bolt of that sun-awful lightning. Quentin often wondered how the man slept when he had lightning bolts in his eyes. Ganymede made to walk off. Quentin said, "You don't want your strawberries?" The giant shook his head and swiped the air in a dismissive gesture. "Not now, we can do this later." "Johnny," came Lady Jupiter's calls, closer now. "But the strawberries are later." His eyes glowed a bright electric blue, and shut it. Lady Jupiter burst out from the sun church door. "Johnny," she said, "where are you going?" "Ah, Gospodin Zuby, you are very late, but that's not a problem." Quentin smiled and watched the theatrics. "Juju," Ganymede said, "I don't want to argue." Lady Jupiter grabbed Ganymede's 2 massive hands with the 4 of hers, that's 2 apiece, and stared up at him. "Then don't be so dismissive. If we don't do something soon, the pipes will be seized." What is going on in Sub-Solemn? Quentin wondered. "I am not getting involved in Sub-Solemn's politics," Ganymede said. "Do not try me." He pulled his hands away from Lady Jupiter's and rubbed his stubble. Ganymede's face always looked to Quentin like granite covered in radiotrophic moss. The giant, shaking his head, walked off. Lady Jupiter clasped her hands together and shook her head too. She said to Quentin, "Come on then, let's talk," and headed back inside. He followed her into the church, one of her sun priests closing the massive doors behind him. Between pillars, great patchwork quilts had been hung. Guttering paraffin candles lined every ledge, shelf, and flat horizontal surface Quentin set his eyes on. He could hear the candle wicks burning. Where has she got all this paraffin from? Motes of dust floated in the air, billowed about as Lady Jupiter crossed from one row of pews to the other. "Well, don't stand there and gawk. What do you think? There's quite a few candles." Yes, she said, seizing a prayer cushion from a pew. "We may not have the sun, but we do have the flame." She smacked the prayer cushion and dust plumed into the air. "Don't you think it's marvellous?" When he didn't reply, she stopped running around and stared at him. Okay, she said, I'll forgive you for being late, but your underwhelming reaction to my decorations can never be forgotten. Are you sure I'm late? I don't see anyone else here. You are the only other person required. I see. His fingers curled ever so slightly. What are you up to, Lady J? He sat himself down in a pew. At least he'd found Ganymede and mentioned the strawberries. And if he doesn't collect them by the day after tomorrow, we'll set them up. We'll set up a stall in front of the nursery and sell them. I don't care if he's paid up already. He can't clog up the nursery's capacity like this. He ran his hands over the wooden backrest of the pew in front. Mahogany. He longed to see trees grow again, to build something with his hands. Nevertheless, Lady Jupiter said, strolling towards him, here you are. Here I am. Shush over. She fanned at him with all four of her hands. He slid down the pew. It creaked under Lady Jupiter's weight as she sat. I have been good to you. You have? He said, not looking to start arguments yet. I have been good to you, and now you must do the same. She turned, the pew creaking some more, and looked directly at him. She didn't have any eyelids, and so never blinked. They sat there in silence, candle wicks burning, her big gelatinous eyes peering. He hated those eyes. Will you do the same? Will you be good to me? Quentin turned away, watched as a candle snuffed itself out. He decided to jump ahead a few lines and said, when Ganymede was leaving, you said to me there were plans to seize the pipes. I hope what you want from me has nothing to do with that. Certainty he couldn't afford, but he knew, at the least, that whatever was going on, the two heads of New Havila were in disagreement. Lady Jupiter smiled, lifted her head. All this here, she said, sweeping an arm through the air, all this decoration and pageantry, it's an attempt to hold on to hope. And I need you to help me do that. A Moscow trader earlier today told me that Sub Solomon were trading fewer power and heat credits, that they aren't selling wheat or cabbage. You see, he wasn't about to be swept up by her theatrics, however alluring. Quentin further went on, saying, he said he didn't even have a nibble. Don't pay attention to those false-faced idiots, Lady Jupiter snapped. She plucked at the folds in her skirt, worried a thread. Oh my goodness me. She plucked at the folds in her skirt, worried a loose thread out and tore it off. We've made a trade, she said at last. That's why they aren't selling to Moscovakis. What sort of trade? We've got every last ounce of their paraffin, as you can see. This was most likely the last paraffin in all the world, at least until an industrious New Havilan figured out how to plumb the earth for oil again. And in return, Quentin said, what have we given them? She clapped both sets of her hands together, snuffing the nearest candle with a blast of air. That's where you come in, Gospodin Alzubi. Behind her eyes sat the truth, and I'm not seeing it. I'm the outsider looking in, unaware of how she's manipulating me. And in return, we shall be providing training to a Sub-Solomon argonomist. He swore the church bells tolled. The Sub-Solomon is to live and work in New Havila, to retrain as a hydroponicist, teaching to be delivered by you. It would appear that they are excuse me. His heart, he was fairly sure of it, had stopped. One of her big eyes darted about in its socket. Yes, you've tried this all before, and it failed. Sub-Solomon will never turn from the soil. Times have changed, Gospodin Alzubi. I'm losing her voice a bit. He said, it doesn't make much sense. If they aren't so devout, why send an argonomist for me to train? They're all on rations, desperate. There is something else here, something she doesn't want to tell me, but what? The time has finally come, Lady Jupiter went on, for Daniel Marston to abandon the soil. And what does Ganymede think of this? A long, wet tongue, about as wide as two of Quentin's fingers, slipped out from Lady Jupiter's mouth and wetted each of her eyes. Once the tongue had withdrawn back into her mouth, she said, "John doesn't have to think anything of it." He seemed angry. "He's a complicated man." "Obviously, he doesn't agree with you, or with this trade." "No," she said, "but his focus, his jurisdiction, is domestic." Quentin breathed out heavily, a yearning for his pipe rising up inside him. "I don't have a decision to make. If Sub Solemn is finally ready to move on from the soil, to truly embrace a proper cultivation technique, it would bring the two societies much closer together. Something I've wanted for almost as long as I've lived. But I've heard all this before." And it was no wonder Sophia had no words for him right now. Lady Jupiter licked her eyes again. Over by the altar, where a clump of candles burnt brightly, a painting, one Quentin hadn't seen in a long while, caught his eye. It was called The Fall of the Bomb. A massive warhead fell towards the ground many miles below. "I am that bomb. I am on my way down." He tore his eyes away from it and found Lady Jupiter standing in the aisle. "I must be getting on," she said. "The summer solstice ceremony does not prepare itself. I shall have a black book prepared for you, with all the instructions and details of this operation. Understand that this is a highly delicate operation, Gospodin Al-Zubi. I expect your utmost compliance." One last thing, Quentin said. "My annual blood exam was today." The tip of her tongue poked out from her mouth. If she had had eyelids, her eyes would certainly have narrowed. "It went a little differently," he said, "to the last 20 or so times." They stood in silence, candles burning, dust motes drifting. "You aren't going to explain," he said. "You don't want to tell me what you're up to with my blood?" The tip of her tongue slid back into her mouth. "Oh," she said. "Did Nurse Iskra not explain?" "No," he said. "We've developed another test. Well, John and his lab have. It looks rather promising. We'll be unlocking your mysteries before summer solstice is over. I'm sure of it." And that is the end of the first chapter. We did it, guys. Woo! Thank you so much for watching. I hope the edit of this kind of works. We've gone widescreen, baby. See ya maybe, I don't know, when I'll do another one of these. Let's see how this edits up. But again, if you are enjoying this, it would really mean the world for you guys to drop a comment, drop a like, do the thing on the YouTubes, man, because we're on YouTubes now, not TikTok, because I like, knocking the mic, I like widescreen. I'm a big fan of the widescreen. So yeah, thank you ever so much. It's kind of surreal just sort of talking to myself, and hopefully I get a bit better at these as I move on. Anyway, I'm like, I love talking. I have a podcast. I just ramble. I just like to ramble. It's because I spend a lot of my time alone. I think, but that's what novelists do, right? Like, novelists just spend an awful lot of time on their lonesome, chatting to each other, chatting to the many peoples in their brains. But yeah, this has been WACOOH. This has been chapter 1 of WACOOH, Blood Lies in a Flower. Thank you so much for listening. Peace.